Okay, now let's take a look at a mock budget and use that to determine how you're going to calculate your overall emergency fund. So zeroing out my income, and now I'm going to go through each budget category and decide, is this something that is a need or want, and is this something that I can cut or not? So in this case, all of my housing expenses, I'm in an apartment and I can't change this. If you have a house or you're renting, a lot of times these are fixed expenses that you will have to pay no matter what. The one thing I am going to do is, right now I'm splitting these bills, so I'm going to go ahead and put in the totals of what they would be if it was just me paying. Okay, and you'll notice I just did rough estimates because, again, we're just looking for a ballpark number. The other thing is I also estimated for the higher end of my expenses. So in this case, this is about as high as my electricity bill will get, and I would rather factor for that than budgeting too little and then reaching an emergency situation and not having the funds available. Okay, now let's continue on. So food, I'm going to go ahead and adjust my groceries down, and then I'm going to zero out restaurants and dates because in an emergency situation, I would not have the disposable income to go out to eat or to go on dates or anything like that. So we're going to zero those out. Now, gas for transportation, well, I will always have to pay for gas, so I'm going to leave that there. But I will zero this out because, again, in an emergency situation where I would use my emergency fund, I would not be contributing to my sinking funds because the priority at that time would be staying afloat. The whole purpose of the emergency fund is to be there when you really need it and nothing else can help. Okay, now here's a good section to look at. So this is like my lifestyle section, and I can zero out probably a fair amount of things. Cell phone I would still keep just because that's my only line of communication, but I could get rid of Apple Care. I don't need the warranty. Obviously, will not be spending money on my planner stuff or my other hobbies. We'll zero those out. And again, clothes, beauty, all of that stuff we'll go ahead and zero out. I will go ahead and put maybe $100 in miscellaneous just for, again, those random, you never know what pops up. And here's another one. So Camp Gladiator, for me, this is a contract one, so I would not actually be able to stop that very easily in a crisis situation. But I could cancel my gym membership. This is also a contract obligation. I'm locked in 12 months, so I can't cancel that. But I can cancel a lot of these. Again, sinking funds, anything of that nature, we're going to zero out. When I need to use my emergency fund, that's not a situation in which I will be saving extra. So that's something to keep in mind. Same thing, house fund, all of these, we're just going to zero out. And same thing even with my retirement contributions. Everything's going to stop in that emergency situation. Okay, so I think we got everything. Now, the next thing is, let me pull this over. So let me pull out my calculator real fast. Okay, so when I calculate it, this is what I got as my lean expenses for an emergency month. And so the next thing is I'm going to decide, okay, for my circumstances, my personality, I am more of a saver. I am very risk averse. Do I want to do a 3-month emergency fund? Do I want to do 6 months? Or do I want to go 8 or even a year? The whole thing with calculating the emergency fund is it's going to be a very personal thing, and there also isn't a wrong way to do it. Some people would argue that you shouldn't have your money sitting in a savings account, that you should put it in investments and have it working for you, but you want something for your emergency fund that's easily accessible, and you're not saving $500,000 just sitting in a savings account. You're saving, again, the 3 to 12 months of expenses that you're deciding is appropriate for your emergency fund. In my case, I'm gonna go ahead with 6 months, which would give me a total of a little over $10,000 is what ideally I would have in my emergency fund. Personally, I actually would prefer maybe 8 to 12 months, but right now I do have other savings goals. And like I said, I doubled a lot of those bills. So really this is padded. This is a padded amount in my circumstances. But in your circumstances, there's no harm in saving more. Not being unreasonable. You're also hitting your other goals of paying off your debts, or you're already investing. So like in my case, I invest 15% of my income, which of course would stop once I would ever have to tap into this emergency fund. I wouldn't invest for that time period, but it would start up again once things got back to normal and I was back on my feet. And so that's just a lot of different factors that you have to consider once you're sitting down, looking at your budget and thinking about what is an emergency fund that fits your life and your needs. And so in my case, basically 6 months, or if I doubled this, so between 10 and 20,000 would be a very solid emergency fund for me to have. I think the easiest way to calculate a reasonable starter emergency fund is just to do a mock budget of what you would spend if you were in an emergency situation. What are your absolute needs, or what are things that you absolutely must pay because you're contractually obligated? And then multiply that by however many months that you want to have set aside in case something ever happens where you would need that money. And so that is all I have for you guys, really. I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, but bye for now, you guys.